So go ahead and take what you knew about the Toyota Land Cruiser nameplate, castrate it, and give it some preferred pronouns, and then voila, that brings you to what we have now. And if you're having a midlife crisis and have a receding hairline, this Porsche 911 just might interest you. Where do I sign? A lot of dealerships, they deployed greedy tactics, charged markups, and they took advantage of you and I, the consumer. They flicked their loyal customers who were returning customers for years, sometimes even decades within their family. They flicked them to the curb, right? And now they need them more than ever. There's an abundance of used inventory because we're seeing so many repossessions take place. People are defaulting on their loans, the highest level of repos that we've seen since the 08-09 recession, and we're expected to surpass that by the end of the year here. Much of the people who ended up buying a new vehicle within the last 5 years, they likely overpaid because dealerships were quick to deploy their greedy tactics of a markup of $10,000 or more over MSRPs. We saw so many dealerships lean into the fear-mongering tactic for the pre-tariffs, right? How many dealerships in the local area did you see saying, hey, come buy your pre-tariff vehicle, come buy your vehicle before those tariffs hit? You see brands like Ford and Stellantis offering employee pricing now. After the whole pre-tariff discussion, they decided to roll out the employee pricing. To me, I think it's a little bit gimmicky. It's not uncommon. Go to any dealership, you're gonna see a ton of unsold 2024 units, right? Every single one of these vehicles is costing this dealership a ton of money every single month collectively. It's gonna start hurting very soon. And if you're okay with refinancing your house, you can come check out this F-150 Platinum. Get a load of this price tag. Absolutely absurd. Over $86,000 for this F-150 Platinum. So many Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Very, very few Americans actually have a little bit of a reserve, any kind of savings nowadays. Now getting a buyer just to sign a purchase agreement, that's only half the battle for a dealership. Now they got to get them approved. And that can be a daunting task right now. So if you're like me and you have 48 kids at home, this might tickle your fancy. This is the all-new Ford Expedition here. This one is the Tremor package, priced at $83,770. Absolutely absurd. If you have this many kids, you likely can't afford a monthly payment of that price tag. The people who can actually afford, and actually people who can actually come out and buy these vehicles outright, well, they're not foolish enough to do so with these inflated price tags. Hey YouTube, Untamed here. They're expecting between 1.8 and 2.1 million vehicle repossessions here in 2025. They're expecting us to continue status quo of an already unprecedented growth rate that took place in 2024 comparatively to 2023. I would argue that that's all thanks to vehicle manufacturers and their greed. They saw what people were willing to pay for vehicles throughout the pandemic. They saw people paying markups and they thought, hey, might as well tack that onto the MSRPs and really bleed people dry. In today's video, I'm going to provide you with some new stats, facts, and figures to really paint a clear picture as to why we find ourselves in this position and what comes next. So stick with me. Vehicle manufacturers have single-handedly screwed over the car market. They, in a sense, screwed over themselves. That's because of their inflated price tags. You can't even go buy a mid-sized pickup truck without spending over $50,000 nowadays. These are mid-spec, mid-trimmed examples. If you're going to get the top trim Tacoma, TRD Pro, Trail Hunter, you're easily looking at 67 to 70 grand. Absolutely absurd. And let's face it, whether you want to believe it or not, supply has far exceeded demand, and that will continue to be the case through the end of the year here. Even at this dealership, there is a ton of inventory, much more than what I'm used to seeing here actually. This is my local dealership, and they're great. I love these people. I mean, the GM, he's great. But still, this is just indicative of what the market is saying right now. This isn't really indicative of this dealership in general. You're going to find this at your local dealership, up the road, you name it. But look at all these Tacomas here. And well, there's plenty over there lined up as well out back, and a few more to the side. There's just an abundance of inventory. People are not buying. And just for context, let me show you a couple of them. We have a Toyota Tacoma Limited. This one does have the iForce Max. Look at that MSRP. Absolutely absurd. Nearing $60,000, and I'll pop over to this other one right next to it, also at iForce Max. These are not the top trimmed examples, like I mentioned. There's your badge, but here, again, over $54,000. Mid-sized pickup trucks should not cost you any more than 35 grand in my opinion. And if you're gonna get a top trim example, maybe 45 if it's like a TRD Pro. And we've talked about it plenty, but people are not buying vehicles and they're not trading in their vehicles right now because the trade-in values are down drastically over the last 12 months. Over the last year, we've seen a drop of 18% in wholesale values, meaning the trade-in value of your vehicle has come down nearly 1/5 of what it used to be just over a year ago. So now a lot of dealerships are kind of being forced to do this. They cannot sell their new inventory, so they're absolutely not selling their used inventory. This vehicle here is going to go to wholesale, so they're trying to sell it at quote-unquote wholesale price. But even then, they can't move the metal. And honestly, we're witnessing the perfect storm when it comes to the car market in general. There's an abundance of used inventory because we're seeing so many repossessions take place. People are defaulting on their loans, the highest level of repos that we've seen since the 08-09 recession, and we're expected to surpass that by the end of the year here. Absolutely absurd. The supply is through the roof, and the demand is just not there. And the little demand that we do have, much of those buyers are being denied from banking institutions. Like we talked about before, 1 out of 5 auto loans that were applied for throughout the last 2 quarters was denied. So let that sink in. Much of the people who ended up buying a new vehicle within the last 5 years, they likely overpaid because dealerships were quick to deploy their greedy tactics of a markup of $10,000 or more over MSRP. So many people got stuck with these hugely inflated loans, and now they're paying the price. Many of them, well, they just gave up. They stopped paying, and that's abundantly clear when you look at the number of repos. And here we have a prime example of quality going down and price tags going up. The Toyota Tundra has been a huge disappointment amongst the Toyota community in general. Here we have 2 examples. We have a Toyota Tundra Limited and a Platinum here. This one is a non-iForce Max, so this one does not have the hybridized V6, turbo V6. This one does have the hybrid iForce Max here. So this one does have that turbocharged V6 with the battery pack strapped to it. And look at that price tag, $70,000 for this Limited. Let's go peek at this one. This one should be either a little bit less or right on par because it is not the iForce Max, but it is a higher trim. Yep, so just under 72 grand for this Platinum here. Insane. I always find it quite comical when dealerships tack on additional accessories, put on a $1,000, maybe $1,500, bed topper out back and then charge you $3 grand for it. That kind of stuff drives me insane. So they're just another opportunity for a cash grab, right? So this here, I guarantee it, this is probably $1,200, $1,500, but they're going to want $3,000 or $3,500 for it. Check it out. Yep. So $3,000, $3 grand for that ARB bed rack. And well, that price tag of this 4-cylinder Toyota Tacoma is just at 50 grand. Tell me, do you think it's worth it? I can still recall seeing a brand new Toyota Corolla, GR Corolla Circuit Edition with a $70,000 markup on it. Do you guys remember? I'm not sure if you followed the GR Corolla at all, but man, dealers at the beginning were absolutely insane with these things. But now, many of them are coming with a $4,000 or $5,000 off discount. This one here, priced at 44 grand, it's a premium. One thing that you'll see a lot of dealerships do is they'll sprinkle in a lot of their kind of consistent inventory amongst all the other inventory. They'll kind of mix it up a little bit to kind of give you the optic that there may not be as many as it appears at that dealership. I actually have a pretty small dealership here in my local hometown, but even still, we have plenty of Toyota Tundras and plenty of Toyota Tacomas here. So there is no shortage of them because largely thanks to that main crankshaft bearing issue, right? So that is plaguing this platform. A lot of people are scared, and rightfully so, to go spend 80 grand or more on a Toyota Tundra that could blow up on you. And I want to show you real quick this 1794 edition of the Tundra with the iForce Max, dang near $82,000. If you were to finance the bulk of that, you're easily looking at monthly payments between $1,500 and $1,800 per month. Absolutely insane. Go ahead and take what you knew about the Toyota Land Cruiser nameplate, castrate it, and give it some preferred pronouns, and then voila, that brings you to what we have now. This is the LC250, or the Prado version of the Land Cruiser, what we now only get in the United States. It has a turbocharged 4-cylinder underneath the hood, a hybrid 4-cylinder, and this one here, priced at over 70 grand. Insane. At very least, the Land Cruiser and the new 4Runner are still built entirely out of Japan. So thank goodness for that, but really it's just a matter of time until they try to outsource it like the Tacoma entirely to Mexico. Much cheaper labor there, and they can still hike up the price tag. And I hate to say it, but these smaller cars like the Toyota Corolla, Toyota Camrys, Toyota Priuses, RAV4s, they're selling. They're selling not because they're wildly popular, they're selling because they're just a logical decision to make, right? You get excellent fuel economy in most of these, right? Many times well over 35, up to 50, 55 miles to the gallon, and the price tags, they make sense. Between that $30,000 and $35,000 price range, they're moving. So although a step in the right direction, we see brands like Ford and Stellantis offering employee pricing now. After the whole pre-tariff discussion, they decided to roll out the employee pricing. To me, I think it's a little bit gimmicky because really, if you were to walk on a Ford dealership lot and go check out one of their F-150s, they were already discounted more often than not right next to employee pricing. So by them announcing it and saying it and making big news of it really excites a lot of people who are not doing a whole lot of homework anyway and beforehand, right? They see the headlines and they get excited, and they'll run out and buy the truck for the price that it was already discounted at. This move really is to try to move off and sell off their 2024 unsold inventory. Because if you go to any dealership lot right now, what are you going to see? You're going to see an abundance of unsold 2024s. It really does just blow my mind to see how many F-150s are at every single Ford dealership lot that I go to. I mean, it's not just here in my local hometown. Anywhere you go, you're going to see lines upon lines of these F-150s. I mean, Ford massively overproduces this truck because they want to keep that title of having the best-selling truck within the United States, and they have for over 48 consecutive years now. We saw so many dealerships lean into the fear-mongering tactic for the pre-tariffs, right? How many dealerships in the local area did you see saying, hey, come buy your pre-tariff vehicle, come buy your vehicle before those tariffs hit? So many of them leaned into it. I would argue if you've seen a dealership do that, I wouldn't work with them. It's just a fear-mongering tactic to trick you into coming out and buying a vehicle. So we did see an uptick in sales in March and a little bit into the first week of April here, but that quickly fell off because, well, President Trump dialed back on the tariffs, of course, and that was a big part of that discussion. But between end of tax season and the pre-tariff fear-mongering, they saw a blip, but now we're already back to where we were. And things are going to get worse, and that's what has dealerships shaking in their boots right now. So many salesmen are actually peeling off because they did not see the type of sales that they're hoping for. That's why I really encourage people to shop around, right? If this dealership wasn't willing to give me a great deal on an F-150, well, go to the next Ford dealership. There's going to be an abundance of the same exact trimmed F-150 that I want. There's a better chance that hopefully they'd be willing to play ball. So just make a few phone calls, call around, even shop out of state. If it means saving thousands of dollars, it's worth buying a one-way plane ticket to fly into a different dealership. And more often than not, the sales rep will actually pick you up if the airport is close enough. Real quick for fun, I want to show you the range of pricing in these F-150s real quick. So we have an XLT right here, a Lariat, we've got a Platinum over there. I just want to show you real fast what you're working with nowadays, okay? So this is XLT, not an XL, so kind of a little bit more of a bare bones example, $63,000 still. And the Lariat here, let's check out the pricing on this one. So a bit more, $72,000 for the Lariat. You get a few additional bells and whistles, and I tell you what, the profit margin on this Lariat compared to that XLT right there is quite a bit higher. So that is why you see so many higher spec and higher trimmed examples on dealership lots, because the dealership and the vehicle manufacturer alike make more money on this one. And if you're okay with refinancing your house, you can come check out this F-150 Platinum. Get a load of this price tag. Absolutely absurd. Over $86,000 for this F-150 Platinum. And guys, I wish I was exaggerating, but the line goes on and on and on for these F-150s. We got a whole lineup of them down there toward the end and out back. Got a bunch of Broncos there, of course, big body Broncos, Bronco Sports, and the line goes on even further to the far side here. Pretty wild, huh? And we have a few examples of the Ford Ranger here. Few on purpose because, again, that price tag is much lower comparatively to all these F-150s over here, and of course the Super Duties. So these are actually selling because people can actually justify the monthly payments on them. We have an STX, a bare bones example, cloth interior, super bare bones. Then this one here, we got an XLT, and I think another XLT right here. Let me show you what the XLT runs, and I'll remind you what that bare bones example will run you. $45,000 for the XLT Ford Ranger. This one here is probably going to be high 30s, low 40s. Let's see. STX, no additional options on it. Just under 39 grand. You tell me, is that worth it? And let's just call it what it is. People are stretched too thin right now. So many Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Very, very few Americans actually have a little bit of a reserve, any kind of savings nowadays, because they exhausted it all. The national average credit card debt for a typical American is $7,300. $9,500 for a typical American household. So people are using their credit cards to fund their regular expenses, their groceries, the groceries that have already been shot up to the moon. Insurance has over doubled in the last 2.5 years. And these price tags here, new vehicles, well, they're out of touch with reality. So people are fed up. And can you imagine going to buy a bare bones, super sparse down version of a big body Bronco with steely wheels, cloth interior, no additional bells and whistles or frills, and still spending well over $40,000? This one here, $44,000, $41,000 some change. Kind of wild, huh? Now the price tags on the bulk of these big body Broncos is well over $60,000, sometimes teetering over 70 grand. And well, when you combine that with the fact that most Americans hold a negative equity on their current vehicle loan, people just can't come in and trade in and buy one of these. That $70,000 Bronco will turn into a $77,000 Bronco. Well, $80,000 plus after you include some taxes too, right? So people cannot justify those monthly payments, and it's abundantly clear when you see just how many are sitting on a lot. With so many Americans struggling to make ends meet as is, between their rent, mortgage, insurance, groceries, you name it, just regular livable expenses, how are they supposed to justify adding on another $760 per month for a new vehicle? That was the national average monthly payment on a new vehicle purchase here in 2024. That new purchase price average was $48,405. If you bought a truck, over $64,000. If you bought a truck, that monthly payment is going to be well over $1,000 per month. Like I mentioned, banks are finding themselves in a little bit of a conundrum, right? They have so many of these high-spec, high-trimmed examples on their lots because it comes with a higher profit margin on them, but they're priced out of this world. They're priced out of touch with reality. People can't come in and buy these. They can't justify making these types of payments. And well, that forces their hand. They have no choice but to discount these heavily and offer an incentivized interest rate if they want any chance to move this metal. Now getting a buyer to sign a purchase agreement, that's only half the battle for a dealership. Now they got to get them approved. And that can be a daunting task right now. Like I mentioned, 1 out of 5 being denied. So 20% out there, that's kind of a large stat, right? Whenever I travel to a Ford dealership, not even just here in my hometown, I only see about 1 to 4 Ford Mavericks sitting on their lots. Whereas you see, dozens upon dozens, sometimes hundreds of Ford F-150s sitting, chilling, collecting dust. Ford Mavericks, they're selling, and that's largely thanks to the price tag, right? Many of them are priced between that $30,000 and $40,000 mark. This one here, this is an XLT priced at about $35,000. People are buying them not because they're wildly excited about them, just like the Camrys, Corollas, you name it. They're buying it because it makes sense. Those monthly payments, they make sense. So if you're like me and you have 48 kids at home, this might tickle your fancy. This is the all-new Ford Expedition here. This one is the Tremor package, priced at $83,770. Absolutely absurd. If you have this many kids, you likely can't afford a monthly payment, of that price tag. So I do like the color though, wild green. That's pretty neat. And then you have the other new color for the year called Marsh Gray there on the Bronco Raptor. Kind of cool. And if you're having a midlife crisis and have a receding hairline, this Porsche 911 just might interest you. Where do I sign? And although we talk about it plenty, I just cannot understand how people justify buying a used vehicle right now, especially a lightly used vehicle, when the price tags of those are not too far off from the discounted prices of new vehicles. And when you combine that with the fact that the national average used vehicle purchase price interest rate is 11% and 7% on a new vehicle purchase, that alone really is enough to justify getting new with a discount on it over used. And I hate to remind myself of this, but I too once bought a Toyota Sienna. This minivan here used to be quite the hot commodity throughout the last few years. Not to say they aren't anymore, but now you can go to dang near any Toyota dealership and find an available one, right? They're always going to have 2 or 3 that are available at all times. So even buying a used one of these doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now to me. And I very rarely say I told you so, but when it comes to the Toyota Tacoma here, the previous 3rd generation and the previous generation, 5th generation Toyota 4Runner with the naturally aspirated engines underneath the hood. This one has a 3.5 liter naturally aspirated V6, the 4Runner a 4 liter naturally aspirated V6. Both of those, I said it, the values of those were going to skyrocket as soon as they went away, right? People miss reliability. They miss simplicity here. But now the new ones, well, they're priced to the moon and they come with a turbocharged, overly complex, hybridized 4-banger if you were to get the TRD Pro or Trail Hunter, right? And because of that, people are flocking back to these reliable, old, trusty platforms. People are realizing instead of drowning in debt and drowning in these huge inflated price tags, monthly payments, they are instead deciding to keep a hold of their vehicle a lot longer. Instead of the average 3 to 5 years, at least for Americans, they like to swap out their vehicles, they're deciding, hey, it's more fiscally responsible to just perform the necessary maintenance and service on their current vehicle and let it run for maybe 5 to 10 years compared to 3 to 5. But that too serves as a part of the problem for dealerships, right, and auto manufacturers. That adds to the compounding issue of inventory. If people are holding onto their vehicles longer, well, these new ones, they're not going anywhere. And I understand what I'm about to say might come across a little bit harsh, but I think it's partly true. A lot of people who can come out and buy a vehicle right now, especially during March and April here, those are the people who got their tax return and now they have a few grand in their bank account and they're able to come out and make a down deposit on a new vehicle purchase, right? So you got those people. But those people too, a lot of them are being denied on their auto loans. The people who are actually coming out to buy it, the people who can actually afford, and actually people who can actually come out and buy these vehicles outright, well, they're not foolish enough to do so with these inflated price tags. So again, another conundrum. You gotta admit, there's a level of irony into what we're seeing right now. A lot of dealerships, they deployed greedy tactics, charged markups, and they took advantage of you and I, the consumer. They flicked their loyal customers who were returning customers for years, sometimes even decades within their family. They flicked them to the curb, right? And now they need them more than ever. And they're nowhere to be found because, well, they burned that bridge. No matter what, you're going to get people who meow about the tariffs. They're going to be like, oh, well, the tariffs are coming. That is going to inflate prices no matter what. Someone's got to eat it, and the manufacturer's going to make the customer eat it. I understand why you believe that, but they don't have that luxury. They absolutely do not have that luxury. A lot of analysts out there believe that maybe they'll hike it up 5 to 7% MSRP over the next year if tariffs were to come back in full force. But personally, look around, right? This inventory, I think that tells you everything you need to know. They're not selling at their inflated price tags as is with huge discounts. What makes you think that they can hike up the price tags any bit more? They can't. And although I actually love the big body Bronco Raptor here, it looks great, it's incredible on the inside and outside, super aggressive. It really is satirical, right? It wasn't all that long ago that these were coming with a $10,000 to $20,000 markup over MSRP. Again, dealers taking advantage of your excitement of a pretty thrilling vehicle, right? They do it with the F-150 Raptors too, the Ram TRXs. They do it with these specialty vehicles that are exciting because they take advantage of your excitement. But now it's satirical because these are coming with a $22,000 to $29,000 off discount. $22,000 to $29,000. I didn't misspeak there. Absolutely absurd. So if you were one of the individuals who bought one early on and paid a $10,000 markup on them, well, you're up a creek now. So what do I think is going to happen throughout the remainder of 2025 here? I believe that now that tax season is kind of on the tail end of that, the fear-mongering bit of the whole pre-tariff gig is kind of in the rear view too. It might come back a little bit, but I think people have wisened up a little bit because that's going to ebb and flow a little bit, right? Dealerships were just quick to deploy those tactics to trick you into coming and buying a vehicle, impulse buying a vehicle, right? So I do believe that we're going to see a huge slump between maybe July and the end of the year. You're going to get the end of year sales that will bring out some people, but they're going to have to offer these huge discounts or, well, dealerships are going to go belly up. They'll have no choice. They'll have no choice because every single vehicle that you see on this dealership lot and every dealership out there has a flooring cost, a line of credit that dealership is paying every single month. That's not a huge amount, but when you have hundreds of vehicles that are sitting month after month and sometimes over years, like I mentioned, so many unsold 2024 models are on this dealership lot, right? And that's not uncommon. Go to any dealership, you're going to see a ton of unsold 2024 units, right? Every single one of these vehicles is costing this dealership a ton of money every single month collectively. It's going to start hurting very soon. All right, guys, I'll wrap up the video there. I think many of us can agree that vehicle manufacturer and dealership greed combined is what has led us to where we're at right now. These inflated price tags means they're not selling. People are not flocking out in droves to come buy their $70,000 Ford Bronco, their $80,000 Toyota Tundra with the main crankshaft bearing issue, safety recall. People are just not falling victim to buying these overpriced vehicles that are overly complex and coming with huge faulty components, right? The quality has come down drastically and people are just not falling victim to it anymore. And they can't. Many of them can't. They can't justify getting a loan out for them. So let me know what your thoughts are. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you taking the time to tune into these videos. If you found any value in it whatsoever, I do respectfully request that you please consider liking and subscribing. Your support means a lot and it certainly doesn't go unnoticed. Until next time.